Okay, so you're thinking about Phuket, huh? Ready to ditch the winter coat for some year-round sunshine.
Sounds nice, right?
Well, today we're going to take a deep dive into Phuket real estate, especially for all you listeners out there thinking about maybe buying property there. We've got this awesome guide, and it's specifically made for foreign buyers like you. It's got all the regulations, the best areas to buy, and tons of tips and tricks. We're going to break it all down for you today, pull out the most important parts, and see if owning your own piece of paradise in Phuket is actually a good idea for you.
It's definitely an exciting idea. But before you start picturing yourself lounging on a beach with a Mai Tai in hand, we need to understand the rules first.
You're right. Buying property anywhere is a big deal, but especially in a foreign country. There's always fine print. So let's start with the basics. What are your ownership options as a foreigner in Phuket?
Well, the good news is that foreigners can own condos outright. That's called freehold.
Okay, so you own it completely.
Hmm.
Just like anyone else. No special rules for foreigners. That's pretty easy. But what about houses? This guide mentions it's a little different, right?
Yeah, you're right. Foreigners can't directly own land in Thailand, so buying a house directly isn't possible. What you can do is a leasehold agreement.
Leasehold.
Yeah, a leasehold agreement basically gives you the right to use and live in the property for a certain amount of time. Usually it's up to 30 years, and you can usually renew it after that.
So it's kind of like a super long-term rental.
Exactly. But you've got way more control and security than a regular renter. You can renovate, even build on the property, and you can sell your leasehold rights. You just don't ever technically own the land itself.
Interesting. But I bet there are some downsides to leaseholds, right? What should people watch out for?
Definitely. The biggest thing is that you're essentially renting, even if it's for like 30 years. So that affects how much your investment could grow in the long run. Leaseholds also come with all sorts of terms and conditions, and navigating those can be confusing. Like renewing the lease isn't always automatic. You might have to negotiate or pay extra fees.
So making sure you understand all those details and having everything written clearly in the lease agreement is super important.
Absolutely. Now, the guide does mention another option for owning a house in Phuket. It's a little more complicated, though, setting up a Thai company.
Right, the Thai company workaround. How does that one work?
Basically, you start a company in Thailand, and that company buys the house. Since the company's Thai, it's legally allowed to own land and property. You, as the foreigner, would own most of the shares in the company. That gives you control over the house.
I bet there's a lot of legal stuff involved in that. What are the cons of going the company route?
Yeah, it's definitely more complicated and more expensive to set up and run a whole company in Thailand. You'd probably need lawyers and accountants to help you with the rules, taxes, and all that.
Okay, so condos are simpler to own, but houses are a little trickier. Let's say you're figuring out your options. How important is location in all this?
Location's huge, and it connects directly to the ownership types we talked about. The guide recommends a couple of areas that are great for foreign buyers: Bang Tao and Surin.
What makes these places so special?
First off, they're just beautiful. Amazing beaches, a really chill atmosphere, and not as crowded as some other parts of Phuket. But they also have a good balance of both freehold condos and leasehold homes, so you have more choices.
Ah, so you have flexibility there. Now, the guide also mentions an area to avoid, specifically Patong. What's the deal with Patong?
Well, you can find some leasehold properties in Patong, but not as many ownership options as Bang Tao and Siren. Plus, it's a lot more developed, really focused on tourism and not as peaceful. The guide suggests that it might not be the best investment in the long run, especially for foreigners.
So it's not just about can you legally own a property, but also is this the right place for me and is it likely to grow in value?
Yeah.
Makes sense. So let's say you found your perfect spot and you're ready to buy. What about the actual process? Buying in a foreign country can be kind of scary.
The guide really emphasizes how important it is to find a good local real estate agent. They're like your local expert. They know everything about the market, all the legal ins and outs, and they can connect you with lawyers, property inspectors, and anyone else you need.
So they take care of everything and help you avoid any problems. Speaking of resources, this guide itself is actually made by a real estate agency that specializes in helping foreign buyers in Phuket. They even focus on properties in Bang Tao and Surin, which sounds promising.
Yeah, they do have villas for sale in those areas. It's always good to check out different options.
Okay, so to sum it all up, owning a piece of Phuket paradise is definitely possible, but you got to know the rules. Condoms you can own completely. Houses need the leasehold thing or the Thai company strategy. And Bang Tao and Surin seem like the best areas.
Exactly. And while this guide is all about can you legally own property in Phuket, the more important question is should you? Do your research, look into the Phuket market. Think about your goals for the future and weigh all the pros and cons before jumping in. Owning property is a big decision anywhere, but especially in a foreign country.
That's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in the dream, but being a smart investor means being informed and realistic. And hey, if you find that dream beach house, send us a postcard. Good luck with your investing.
Definitely do.
We'll be back next week with another deep dive.
See ya.